Hello, welcome to Recapping with Delora
and Ashley.
Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Recapping Podcast.
Also, comment, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. We're on all the things.
We would love to hear your ratings of the movies and shows we review.
Email us your audio file to recappingpodcast@gmail.com and we will play it during the show.
Or DM us on Instagram and we will post and read it on air.
Thank you guys so much for listening.
Thank you.
Delora, how are you today, my friend?
Hi, Ashley. I am doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good. Do you enjoy a little light torture every now and then? You enjoy little, experimentation, some BDSM. I don't know what else you could put in that genre, in that category, but do you enjoy a little pain and torment?
I don't kiss and tell, Ashley.
Well, guys, the only reason why I ask is because on the show they were recapping today, we could definitely say that she falls in the category of enjoying probably more than a little light torture, because we're talking about Wednesday Addams in the series Wednesday, released on Netflix on November 23rd, 2022. 8-hour-long episodes. I mentioned this during our Headlines and Hot Topics episode last week, that this was definitely on my list of faves from 2022. And according to Variety, Netflix announced shortly after its debut, the series set a new platform record for most hours viewed for an English language series in its first week, with over 341 million hours. Since then, the show has grown to become the second biggest English language season of television on Netflix, with over 1.2 billion hours viewed within its first 28 days, among other streaming series records. The series is already renewed for a second season. Very exciting. Let me give you guys a quick summary. While attending Nevermore Academy, Wednesday Addams attempts to master her emerging psychic ability, thwarting a killing spree, and solve the mystery that embroiled her parents 25 years ago. The series is executive produced and directed in part by the one and only Tim Burton. Cast. Wednesday is portrayed by the one and only Jenna Ortega, doing her damn thing in this series.
A star. She's a star.
Morticia is portrayed by the one and only Catherine Zeta-Jones. Gomez, portrayed by Luis Guzman. Principal Weems by Gwendolyn Christie. Enid by Emma Myers. Bianca by Joy Sunday. Xavier by Percy Hines White. Tyler, portrayed by Hunter Doohan. Pugsley, portrayed by Isaac Ordonez. Thing, portrayed by Victor Dorobantu. Miss Thornhill, played by Christina Ricci, the original of our generation, the original Wednesday.
Love her.
Dr. Kimbot is played by Riki Lindholm. Sheriff Galpin is played by Jamie McShane. Uncle Fester is played by Fred Armisen. Joseph Crackstone is played by William Houston, and Mayor Walker is played by Tommy Earl Jenkins. Reviews: Rotten Tomatoes, 72% critic score, 86% audience score, and 97% of Google users gave this series a thumbs up. Delora, what is your grade for Wednesday?
Wednesday. So when I saw that this was coming to Netflix and I saw, Tim Burton's stamp of approval, and I sound like an old lady, but every time I see Jenna, I'm like, she's a star. She's a star. This series was a joy. It was so much fun growing up watching all things Addams Family, watching the original movies, or our original movies, because it was a show, in black and white,
right?
For even the generation before our parents. And so I just love that it was just the mixture of all the things I love. I love a good high school drama. I love a good mystery. I love a good goth moment, like love triangles. And then Wednesday, the fact that she was so straight laced throughout everything was so funny. It was so funny. Like she was reading everyone for filth, and I was here for it. So it's an A. How about you, Ashley?
Oh, it's an A for me. A plus, I guess, really, since this is one of my faves of 2022. Let me go ahead and throw that respect on it. I was definitely excited when this was announced. I love the Addams Family. I had a renewed love of the original films that you're talking about, Addams Family Values, over COVID, because for some reason I watched those repeatedly on Netflix. Like, I don't know why, but they just still bring me so much joy. But I feel like I was excited because this was Wednesday's star turn. And the two movies that I'm talking about and that we're talking about focus much more on Uncle Fester, both of them. So I don't feel like I really got a chance to know much about Wednesday outside of kind of the adventures when they got sent to that summer camp. So to delve deeper
legendary
into that
love
monologue,
watching that during Thanksgiving.
That
always.
Monologue she had during the scene where they were supposed to be the Indians or Native Americans and the Pilgrims and all that, epic. And if you think about it, that thread line follows into this series because we talk about pilgrims and early settlers.
Yep.
So I appreciate that they kept that energy, because that's absolutely Wednesday spoke big facts. And I love this delve deeper into her story, as well as finding out more about Morticia and Gomez when they were younger, and just all of it. Like, I love the Addams Family, I guess, is the moral of the story. So it's an A+ for me. All right, let's get into the good, guys. Spoiler alert. Let's get into it. Episode 1, Wednesday, when we meet her in the series, gets expelled from Nancy Reagan High School. Love that they named it Nancy Reagan High School, by the way.
Hilarious.
Because she unleashed some vicious piranha on a group of jocks who were bullying her brother, Pugsley. She doesn't even need him to name names because she saw the incident in a psychic vision that she mentions in her narrations to the audience she's recently been plagued by. Do you feel like this was an appropriate response to school bullying?
No, of course not. But it was pretty badass. I mean, I would never think of doing anything remotely close to that, right? Lives are on the line, but for her to act like she doesn't care about her brother because she's always threatening a beheading for him, I love to see that I can talk about him, but you can't type of energy.
Yeah. I appreciate that when we meet her, she is, you're immediately getting set up with the idea that Wednesday is not to be fucked with, Avi, but also still the family ties and the family closeness that we know of the Addams family is obviously still there. And, even at her little stature, you come for Wednesday, you come for her loved ones, she's going to handle it. So Morticia and Gomez, in response to her getting expelled, enroll Wednesday in their alma mater, Nevermore Academy Boarding School, a school for outcasts, quote unquote. Wednesday is not happy about this decision, but I loved this setting because, again, it sets the scene to get additional history on Gomez and Morticia's lives. So, just this choice to incorporate their backstory was fun from an audience perspective.
I agree.
Wednesday's much more vibrant and excited roommate Enid provides a school tour, fitting as Enid says she runs a vlog which she dubs the #1 source for Nevermore gossip. A girl after our own heart, right, Laura?
Exactly.
We have the scene we've come to expect from many a teen project, the breakdown of the social scene of their school. At Nevermore, you have the 4 main cliques. You have the Fangs, which are vampires, the Furs, which are werewolves. Enid is a part of this group. The Stoners, which are Gorgons that have Medusa powers, and Scales, which are sirens. The queen bee of the school, Bianca, is a siren, which I enjoy because of all the supernaturals that are featured, I probably know the least about sirens. I'm not necessarily familiar with Gorgons either, but sirens intrigue me a little bit more because they have that whole mermaid quality, but they're also manipulative because they can control you.
Yeah. Actually, that's what I loved a lot. Spoiler alert about Wakanda Forever, dealing with Namor and his fam, the people who live in the ocean, who have the power to allure, and of course, Queen Bee. So, of course, she's going to have an alluring quality to her, right? What's drawing people to her? What's her magnetism? And it also taps into, there's a lot of African lore about mermaids and the ocean and things along those lines that I feel like people need to be reminded of, because there's always this association that like Black people don't get wet, and do.
Yes.
There's actually, for some of the African countries on the coast, on the continent, Black people who surf, like shocker. So I'm not gonna lie though, her eyes took me off, was a little off-putting for me. And it was so funny because I didn't hear, the first time I watched it, I didn't hear Eden say that she was a siren. So when I saw her, I'm jumping ahead just a little bit, going face to face with Wednesday, I was like, those aren't her eyes, are they? And then I went on Instagram, because like I do every time I watch a movie or TV show, especially at home, the phone is out. Google and IMDb is
absolutely
out. And I'm like, who is this girl? Okay, no, these are her real eyes.
Checking all the facts. Yeah, I mean, they made it seem pretty authentic, because I would imagine that they would have to have different eyes if they're underwater creatures and all that sort of thing. But you kind of answered the question I had, which was, did you enjoy this supernatural take on high school cliques? Which it sounds like you did.
Yeah, it was something, I haven't seen outside of I brought this up and I don't know why I'm bringing it up again. The Descendants, right? Like they play into, fairy tale characters, but again, essentially it's supernatural. I think it's cute. And to your point, I don't know much about Gorgons. All I know is Medusa, frankly, and so
you wouldn't think about it necessarily as being a power that is heavily available out there, in terms of, what someone would possess, because we haven't really seen it in our other projects. But I mean, it was just a departure. It was an interesting departure, because usually what is it? Vampires, werewolves, fairies.
Yes.
Those are the bigger ones.
The big ones. Yeah. Fairies and witches.
Yeah. How could I forget witches? Duh.
Right. Also, I was surprised we were expanding on that, because when it comes to the Addams family, they really didn't elaborate on their weirdness, quote unquote, right? Like, yeah, you had an uncle that was all hair, but I didn't know
Cousin It.
That type of, this is like an expansion of that universe, right? We only thought like the Addams family were in some ways insular, right? The world is still normal, but this family is just weird, right? Now it's like, oh no, there's parts of this world that's weird.
No, that's a great point, that they're not just the weird family that lives in a normal society, that they live in a society of supernatural abilities. I definitely appreciate that as well, because obviously we love a supernatural.
Yes.
A supernatural moment. So
yes,
they gave us everything we needed. Gomez left Thing behind at Nevermore to keep an eye on Wednesday, which she quickly discovers and recruits Thing to do her bidding and try to help her escape. Because for some reason, Wednesday's goal is to run away from school, but to do what exactly? She's only 15 when we start this series. Where did she think she was going to go?
One thing I love about Wednesday, she is a self-possessed young woman who has clear goals and aspirations.
I have no doubt she was going to be fine, but I kept wondering, you do so well at school. I guess you just like, I'm done with this. I'm ready to go out into the world.
It's her having having a mentor slash nemesis relationship with the author of Frankenstein. Like, who creates that even in their mind? Like, oh, this person in history is
Mary Shelley,
but my goal is to be her by 2 years and whatever. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
you know what? That was a very Michael Jordan moment. I feel like, you know, when you just create grudges in your mind to help you achieve goals, that's what that is.
Yes.
And to that point, you really lead me into my next thought, which is that this version of Wednesday, she's arrogant, but she's gifted, right? She's a writer. She can fence. She gets perfect grades. She can read Italian. She can fight. She builds and fixes equipment. She plays the cello. What can't Wednesday do in this series really is the question. Seems like anything she puts her mind to, she has developed a skill for.
Capable, though. She was always
capable, but this series took her skill set, I feel like, to another level, because it's one thing to know how to do things. It's different to excel at every single thing that you do. And that was great. I love to see that, especially in a young female character.
Yes. But in some ways, she's not doing time-sucking activities either, like social media.
She does not believe in it. She does not believe in it. We all need a little more Wednesday in us, I think.
Exactly. Well, especially when she said, I dedicate an hour a day to her writing. I'm like, yes, sis.
But then she had the cutting remark that, oh, Enid, if you did the same, maybe your vlog would be, legible or, readable or whatever she said. I'm just like, Jesus, you are mean.
She read everyone to filth.
Yeah. And yet everyone was attracted to her in one way or another. It's fascinating. Wednesday encounters the townspeople of the nearby city, Jericho, for court-ordered therapy, and they are not very welcoming to Nevermore students, to say the least. But she does spark up a relationship with the sheriff's son, Tyler, who is willing to help her get out of town. In this episode, she also sparks a connection in Wednesday's way with Xavier, Bianca's ex, who saves her from being killed by a falling gargoyle statue. Apparently, this was him returning the favor from her saving him when they were 10 years old. Fellow student and outcast amongst outcasts, Rowan, who Wednesday had defended, tries to kill Wednesday twice. He was behind dropping that gargoyle and tries to finish the job in the woods, all due to some premonition and drawing his mother had done 25 years earlier that predicted Wednesday would take part in destroying the school. She's saved by a wolf-like monstrous creature that kills Rowan. This attack helps explain a series of murders going on outside of the school, which the sheriff had lied and dubbed bear attacks. The sheriff, it's of note that he also hates Gomez Adams, her father, because he feels he should be in prison for a murder in their past. Delora, this was a lot to unpack in one episode because this all happened within Wednesday's first week of school.
Absolutely.
But yes. She was quite intrigued. She hopped on a call with the fam and was like, listen, I'm down for this now. I'm excited to be here at Nevermore Academy.
That made me chuckle. I'm like, of course you would be. And I love that about you.
In episode 2, somehow Rowan is alive and reappears at school after the events of episode 1. Makes Wednesday seem like she's lost her mind. But it's revealed to the audience that it was Principal Weems, and she is a shapeshifter. Wednesday admits to Thing in this episode that her greatest fear is that she'll be responsible for something terrible. Was that a surprising revelation to you, given Wednesday's affinity for
what we would deem as violent?
There you go. Danger, all of it.
Yeah, for me, it was like, so what's the definition we're using today?
Yeah, I was surprised by that, but I enjoyed her relationship with Thing in the series
Yes.
and kind of the push and pull of, their family, but she treats him terribly, but she still, loves and appreciates Thing the way I guess she loves and appreciates anybody in a very
Right.
Wednesday-like fashion.
And to that point, in terms of family dynamics, I really don't remember Wednesday being so antagonistic towards her mother.
She wasn't.
I didn't think so.
She
Like, so in
wasn't.
this series,
It's
you
very
know,
teen angsty.
very like, I don't want what you have. And also very teen like, thinking you know everything, right? So it's like, oh, I don't want to just be at home and, with waiting for my husband or whatever. And it's like, oh, you don't really know their story.
She didn't really know their story, right? Again, 15. They definitely haven't shared everything with you just yet. So chill out. The Bianca Wednesday rivalry was turned up a notch with the annual Poke Up in this episode. Very Harry Potter like to have some type of competition for the students.
It's the blending of all the faves, right?
Yes, all the
little
all
bit
the
of Twilight,
faves.
a little bit of Mean Girls, a little bit of what's the other one we talked about?
Carrie is gonna be in a part of this.
Yes.
So they definitely picked and pulled from, and even Clueless. I mean, they picked and pulled from a lot of teen comedy dramas from our era. And the Poke Up was a school tradition with no rules. Wednesday and company won, but what did you think of this dynamic between Wednesday and Bianca? Did you take a side? Did you feel like Wednesday was coming in hot? Did you feel like Bianca deserved to be dethroned? What'd you think?
I feel like the rivalry between Wednesday and Bianca had a lot to do with ego on both sides. So Bianca feeling insecure about the new girl, right? Like there's competition. And then Wednesday being great, but never having to have that tested really. And like she has never had anyone really go toe to toe to her like that.
Very true.
And so was I choosing the side? Of course I was choosing Wednesday, but Wednesday, she's not what I would call an anti-hero, but she's not always easy to root for.
I have to be honest, casting this Bianca person as her nemesis was hard for me to just actively root for Wednesday. I was conflicted sometimes. I was like, yo, I don't know if I'm necessarily going for Wednesday. I know as her being the main character of this series, that's what y'all want for me to do. But I mean, Bianca's been running the show for a while. She's definitely good at all of these same things that Wednesday is good at, if not better in certain ways. Like when she bested her in fencing, the only thing that frustrated me in that moment was that I felt Bianca was being a bully. So with that scene, it was like, well, go ahead, Wednesday, go ahead and knock her down a peg or two. But there were a few other scenes I was like, I don't know, because, you're coming in and there's this heat between you and her ex. That's always going to cause friction and, the dynamic in class. And just, I was like, I don't know, bruh. I don't know.
I will say this, though. I do feel like between the two of them, I probably leaned a little bit more on Wednesday's side, only because Wednesday wasn't gunning to be Queen Bee, number one chick, head in charge or whatever. For me, it was like Bianca being threatened over her insecurities. But it's like, if you really looked at what Wednesday wanted, she didn't want what Bianca had.
That's very true. Her mere presence was causing an issue that she never tried to cause. But at the same time, Wednesday can be very off-putting because she can be rude. Let's be honest.
She is Rude.
Yeah. Let's be honest. So again, that's why it's like, it's not just so cut and dry for me. Cause it's like the same time, but you were like, even her dynamic with Enid, like I was like, yo, Enid, smack her. Like, do not let her talk to you like this. Not right.
One of my
not
favorite
violence.
tropes.
Not violence.
Grumpy sunshine, right? Literally. When Wednesday said that she was allergic to color and the side effects that would ensue, I was like, they are fooling. They are fooling.
But yo, they made an
me.
exception for her even with the school uniform to accommodate that. So, you know, they were playing into it a little bit with the way that Wednesday was, for sure. Lastly, as a part of episode 2, I appreciated the inclusion of that signature 2 snaps. That was the secret to unlocking the student society, the nightshades that Wednesday had been looking for the connection to Rowan in that book that he tore that picture of her from. So appreciate the callback to that version of the Addams family. In episode 3, Wednesday was less than thrilled with the Nightshade Squad once they were revealed, complete with her nemesis Bianca and her potential boo thing Xavier. But she got what she needed, the book with the prophecy that includes a mysterious pilgrim who turned out to be Joseph Crackstone, Jericho's quote-unquote founding father. It's Outreach Day at Nevermore Academy, Delora, in which the school students go to Jericho to volunteer and mingle with the townsfolk. Did this free Labor Day, because let's call it what it is, seem purely political to you? Because you had Principal Weems apparently even talking about how she made a generous donation to the mayor's re-election campaign.
Of course, everything's political, Ashley. Even the whitewashing of the history. Like, what sense does it make to have a group of students who are descendants of people who were clearly oppressed by this community and its founding father? Like, what the fuck? You know?
And I feel like this is when we start getting into the not just know your history, but how much of the history did all of these folks know about? Because when we start getting into the story of Joseph Crackstone and the, you know, atrocities that happened to outcasts, is everybody literally just overlooking that? Or is it like a lot of people just being ignorant and not actually looking into the actual town history and calling this man a founding father and wanting to erect a statue in his honor? Where do we fall?
Right.
But it was definitely super political. And I mean, literally political, right? It was a bonding between the principal of the academy and the mayor of the town in order to keep both of them intact, in order to protect him and his town, because a lot of the Nevermore funding went into the town.
Yes.
And then Principal Weems trying to keep everybody on the good foot so that, you know, basically the townspeople don't come with axes and fire and try to either burn the school down or shut them down, because that's oftentimes what happens.
See, we're just like you.
Mm-hmm. We're friendly. We're the friendly monsters. Ooh, it's giving me chills because it's like so gross. Yeah. Wednesday had her most vivid vision to date in the episode and learns the fate of her ancestor from 400 years prior, Goody Adams, who Joseph Crackstone attempted to burn, alongside others he deemed outcasts. At the unveiling of Joseph Crackstone's bronze statue in Jericho, Wednesday sets it ablaze with Things Help. Do you feel like this was a message sent, or just her getting revenge for the vision that she saw? Do you feel like she was trying to let everybody else know that he wasn't fit to stand in the town square, or was it purely for her own enjoyment?
I think Wednesday does most things for her own enjoyment.
Agreed.
She's not going around wondering what people think about her and her actions or words.
Agreed. Very good point. A major discovery this episode regarding that monster that killed Rowan and has been killing others is that it's human. Did you fear for Wednesday's safety once you found this out? And did anyone stand out for you at this point as a suspect?
I did not fear for her safety because if the monster wanted to kill her, it would have done it in the first episode.
Okay.
But it was obvious that this monster was on some type of rampage. And it was hitting pretty close to home, right? But like most, mysteries, like one of my favorite tweets on Black Twitter, they're like, not Wednesday being Nancy Drew.
Seriously, if you think about it, it was ironic that someone who does not care about much cared so much about uncovering these truths.
Exactly. And so, like a good whodunit, just like our last recap for Glass Onion, there were multiple suspects, right? So, I mean, it could have been anybody. It could have been Enid. Definitely Tyler and Xavier were top two for sure. But I never thought Bianca or Ajax or anything like that was a part of it. But yeah, the guys for sure.
I never thought Enid, but that would have been a hell of a twist.
Oh, I did, because don't let the rainbows fool you.
No, that would have been a hell of a twist. Ooh, that big reveal too. Ooh, that would have gave me chills if it had been Enid.
But I also didn't trust Miss Thornhill either. She was a little bit too in the face for me. Oh, I picked out this plant for you. Oh, you're a normie? Why are you here?
The first normie to ever teach at Nevermore Academy. I agree with you that Tyler and Xavier were at the top for me because I was wondering why they were interested or wanted to be close to Wednesday. Miss Thornhill, also Principal Weems was on my list.
Very suspicious. Now, I will say with her, I didn't know if my suspicions was solely, like when I found out that she was roommates with Morticia, I was like, there's some undercurrent here.
Seemed like she had a chip on her shoulder.
Yeah, and it's like, and she hadn't necessarily been the kindest to Wednesday either. Even having that quote unquote history with her mother. So yeah, the principal was definitely a suspect, but she also felt like a pawn for covering up any and everything to keep the school open and running.
Yeah, she just had these very weird lingering smiles that I didn't trust. So it's like, why are you always in the shadows?
She was always so perfect.
Smiling.
She was so perfect.
Yeah.
Not a hair strand out of place.
But that goes to show the image, like the way she always was. She was trying to project this image.
Yes.
In order to be accepted into society, which again, very unfortunate. But Miss Thornhill too, I feel like at first the only reason why Miss Thornhill was on my suspect list, because I was like, y'all ain't gonna have Christina Ricci in here and she ain't gonna play some major role.
She ain't gonna do nothing. Yeah. She's just literally some plain ass teacher.
Exactly.
Highly doubt it.
Not our Wednesday. That's not
our original Wednesday.
Yes.
Not today, not tomorrow.
Exactly.
Not
exactly.
ever.
All right, let's move on to episode 4. New clue on the monster this episode. All of its victims have had body parts surgically removed. So now these are not just obviously random killings. There's a plan and there's a purpose behind whatever the monster has going on. Xavier is at the top of Wednesday's suspect list, speaking of who we thought may be behind it, due to unexplained scratches on his neck and drawings he's done of the monster based on his dreams. She initially asked him to the Raven dance to get closer to him and goes to the sheriff to try to join forces in uncovering the truth. Brings the sheriff the monster's claw she discovered and a rag with Xavier's blood to check the DNA. Why do you think the sheriff went along with DNA testing based on evidence from this 15-year-old girl?
Again, with this being giving Nancy Drew vibes, right? Veronica Mars, no.
Scooby-Doo. Okay, Velma.
It's like, well, you're doing all the investigation.
They did make him seem lazy. They did make it seem like he didn't actually do anything. He was always just following up on other people's
wait.
suspicions.
Only murders in the building.
Yes. Yes. You have to have the Scooby-Doo gang.
Evidence. Yeah.
You have to have the Scooby-Doo gang do all the hard work. Yeah, I felt like that's what it was too, is he didn't have any real leads himself. So he's like, I guess, why not? Might as well bring me the DNA form. Let's go. Xavier realizes Wednesday is only trying to get close to him because of her suspicions and decides to go to the dance with Bianca instead. This is when it started to rub me the wrong way. Like, you're not going to treat my good sis Bianca like table scraps. You know what I'm saying? I ain't like that. Well,
it's like, I need for you to make up your mind. Like, are you with Wednesday or Bianca? Because obviously that was a major source of friction between the two as well.
Yes. I feel like he had made up his mind. He was just hurt. After some interference and matchmaking from Thing, Wednesday went to the dance with Tyler, who had been jealous that he wasn't initially invited. So were you team Tyler? Were you team Xavier? Or were you indifferent?
They were definitely two different types of people. It was like, choose your own adventure, right? Do you want the brooding artist who's tormented by his dreams? Or do you want the goofy ass, normie, vanilla?
He was vanilla.
Gee golly, what do you want? Right? So for me, I think I've always leaned it towards Xavier, the broody. I'm like, every time I think broody, my number one broody person in TV is obviously Jon Snow. I'm always like, I don't want it. I don't want it.
Something about the wounded
bird.
The wounded bird trope.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
Jon was just so innocent too. That was another layer on him. He was so innocent.
And it's like, I'll teach you things.
Y'all can't see my face, but I felt like if I had to choose between the two of them, I'm team Xavier as well. I don't want to be not nice to that particular actor who played Tyler, but I didn't like, there's something about Tyler's face that I didn't like. It was like he always had this same like look and like concerned look and like the eyebrows squinted together. And I was like, there's just something about you that I just really don't like and I just really don't trust. And I felt that way so early in the series. And it just like, I was like, I don't really gravitate towards you as a person. So in that way, I was team Xavier, but at the same time, both of them were suspicious in various ways. So it was like, I can't trust either of you, because that y'all really have Wednesday's best interests at heart.
Xavier just kept popping up after some major event happened. It's like, why are you here?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Yeah. So again, I probably lean Xavier, but at the same time, I could not fully trust either of them. We are gifted in this episode Wednesday's infamous dance scene in the series, which Jenna Ortega choreographed herself and lists out in a tweet that she put out inspo that she took from various people, including Fosse's Rich Man's Frog, Lisa Loring, Lenny Lovich, Dennis Levant, archival footage of golf dancing in clubs in the 80s, just multiple sources, and people went nuts. I have to admit, when I first saw it, I couldn't take my eyes off of the screen. I was so intrigued. I was so entertained. I was blown away by the actress and Wednesday doing this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because there was like this grace to it as well, right?
And Wednesday takes herself so seriously. It was like, but you enjoy dancing?
Would never. That was not on my bingo card at all. For sure. On our social media, literally every Wednesday, there's some version of someone doing that dance in our stories, because I am not over it.
Iconic.
My favorite one has been the lady in the pool who does synchronized swimming. Her rendition of it was quite fascinating, but
there was a little girl, a video of a little girl who did it so spot on. I was like, how are you probably at the age of like, she had to be no older than 10, this spot on with this impression of this dance. It was flawless.
I love it. And
Jenna was apparently battling COVID when she did this dance scene.
Yeah. I was going to say, what I love about this part too is like, she's so pretty, right? She's so pretty. And I love that dress.
Yeah.
I feel like the dress played a major role in that dance too for me. Cause I was just like, you can't take your eyes off of her, like you said.
Best scene of the entire series for sure.
Yes.
The mayor's son, Lucas, also asked Enid to this dance, but it was a setup with the other Jericho local boys who had already caused trouble Wednesday. She had to beat them up like twice. This was all to get back at the students for the statue incident. So this is when the carry reference came in. They carried them with red paint in the sprinkler system. Wednesday's fellow B Club member, Eugene, almost gets himself killed in this episode, staking out the monster's cave against Wednesday's advice. She had to go on to the dance. She said, wait for me. Don't do anything. But Eugene went on anyway. She ends up seeing it in a vision and rushes to help him along with Miss Thornhill. Why didn't Eugene just wait? Why would he take matters into his own hands? Defenseless.
I like to call him my little baby bumblebee because he was so adorable.
He was.
He just wanted to feel wanted. And I think he thought this was his opportunity to do something, to bring something back to Wednesday. But it was ill-advised for sure. In the middle of the night with a freaking creature on the roam. No, thank you.
This is when kids are a little too fearless for me. Like you couldn't even defend yourself against humans, let alone some monster out in the woods in the night.
Exactly.
Come on, Eugene. Episode 5, guys. It's Parents' Weekend. And Wednesday spends it trying to figure out the details to the alleged murder Gomez committed 32 years prior as a student at Nevermore. In a flashback to the Raven Dance 1990, baby, we see Principal Weems as a student, while another student, Garrett Gates, falls to his death at her feet with a stab wound and Gomez looking down, holding a sword. Weems alleges it's all Morticia's fault. They were fighting over her when she talked to the police about it at the time. When Wednesday brings up the police file, an alleged murder during a family therapy session, Morticia shuts it down. Why do you think Morticia was so defensive about revealing the truth?
I feel like she was defensive because honestly, she wanted to keep it close to her chest. I mean, I feel like Wednesday is definitely the type of child that would be able to handle this conversation. However, does everybody need to know everything?
I feel like this was very old school. This was very much stay in a child's place. Why are you asking these questions? This is none of your business. This is between me and your father. Your father was found innocent. Let it go. Leave it alone. If one of my parents had been accused of murder, I'm going to ask some questions.
But my deal is you don't know your daughter enough to know she's going to want to find out.
Yes, she does. Yes, she does. But the personality differences they emphasize so much between Morticia and Wednesday in this series, they are still very similar. They just have different approaches. So I didn't know how this was going to resolve because I was like, Wednesday may be adamant, but Morticia don't play either. Don't let the sunny disposition she has fool you.
And she does not have a sunny disposition.
Or the Addams family, she does.
Right. Surprisingly, she represents love a lot more, you know. Yes. Yeah, that's so funny.
Bianca and Enid had some issues with their own mothers during the weekend. Bianca's makes a surprise appearance requesting that she return to the morning song cult she's apparently part of, or her mother was going to out her as having sirened her way into Nevermore. That was a big revelation in the Bianca storyline. It makes it offers more insight into why she's so rubs so much against Wednesday, because she's fighting for her position at all times.
Yes. And, you know, when you're used to fighting, you don't know when to stop, right?
Yeah.
And so,
yeah.
Yeah.
And Enid's mom tries to send her to a conversion camp for werewolves because, again, she hasn't wolfed out yet, and it's apparently a big thing. You can be essentially ostracized from your family and from your pack, which that was interesting. I had never heard that version of werewolf folklore before.
No, I haven't either.
Why the emphasis on difficulties in mother-daughter relationships, you think?
Oh, that's a great point, because that episode was definitely, that was the through line for sure. I think it's important because if you think about it, that mother-daughter relationship goes through different phases through the young woman's life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking about teenagers, and therefore that's some of the most difficult time, right? So especially when you're trying to navigate your own womanhood and knowing what you want out of what you think you want out of life and what you've seen through your mother, right? Whether that's a hell yes or a hell no, right? So it's always a fascinating, conversation, and it's a tale as old as time. So I think them showing that, I think, helps humanize Wednesday in a way that, because again, we're talking about a young woman who's extraordinary in all things.
Yes. Yes.
But her family dynamics, shapes her into being who she is,
1000%. When the coroner allegedly commits suicide and leaves a note claiming to have falsified the coroner's report for that Garrett Gates murder, the sheriff has the proof he needs to arrest Gomez. Morticia confesses to Wednesday to actually being the one that killed Garrett to save Gomez, and he took the blame for her. Wednesday and Morticia dig up Garrett's body to confirm Wednesday's suspicion that he was poisoned. They get arrested for it, but in a vision, Wednesday sees that it was Garrett's father who gave him nightshade poison, and that poison broke in his pocket during the fight with Gomez, and that really was what ultimately would have killed him. The plan had been to kill all the students at the school because the Gates family, as a descendant of Joseph Crackstone, hated outcasts. The mayor knew about all of this, Delora. He'd been sheriff at the time, and he covered it all up for his own sake and reputation. Drops charges against Gomez after a visit from Wednesday and Morticia. Thanks to this walk down memory lane via the school yearbook, Wednesday finally discovers that Principal Weems is a shapeshifter. When confronted, Principal Weems declares to doing what's best for the students and the school. Do you agree with the decisions that she's made, particularly covering up the murder of Rowan? And are Weems and the mayor the same?
Absolutely. They are opportunists who are both driven by their public image, right?
Optics.
All optics, and by any means necessary. So, of course, she acted like she was Rowan, because I feel like, I don't know if they were able to really express it in the series, but I always felt like the undercurrent with Principal Weems was like the school is holding on by a thread, right? In terms of its ability to exist, its ability to stay in this community. And there was like a level of desperation whenever something came up that she was like, how can we nip this in the bud as fast as possible?
Yep.
And so I feel like the mayor did that for the city as well.
I feel like the only difference that I took away from it was that the mayor seemed like his motivations were more selfish than Principal Weems. It felt like he didn't necessarily even care about the town. He just liked the stature that he had as being the mayor. Whereas I really do feel like Principal Weems cared about the school and about the students. I just don't think she necessarily always had the best strategy for how to deal with that. but that's hard to judge. I was in my mind right now as you were talking, comparing her a little bit to Professor Xavier and X-Men and thinking about what would Professor Xavier do? He also was charged with caring for a school of mutants, of outcasts, and that balance between keeping all the students safe. Did he tell the students everything when all those major events happened in X-Men? Or did he only tell those main professors, Wolverine, Jean Grey, all of them who needed to know to help protect and keep everybody safe? You know, I think that's a hard balance, especially when you are a minority class of citizen that is under threat. Like, I feel like it's the stakes are way higher. So I agree. That's the main differentiator for me. So I was like, Wednesday, maybe go a little bit easier, because if you were in this position, you don't know all of what you would have to do either to keep the ship upright, to keep everybody intact. So that was my only takeaway from that. I had to give Principal Weems a little bit of grace. That
was a good example with X-Men.
Thank you. Let's move on to episode 6. It's Wednesday's sweet 16th birthday, and while her friends lure her out to Crackstone's crypt for a surprise party, she's much more interested in summoning her relative Goody to help understand and control her psychic abilities. During the scene, I was thinking, like, what did y'all think Wednesday's response was going to be? Did y'all think she was going to be excited? This is Wednesday.
The question is, do you know her?
Right.
Do you really know her?
Y'all brought her a cake. Like, that's so just not on brand for how Wednesday would want to celebrate her birthday.
I'm like, look at her collecting friends.
Location wise, though, on the nose, they had that together because it helped her continue her investigation, right? And at the end of the last episode, Fire Will Rain was burned onto Nevermore's lawn. And when she gets to the crypt, she realizes that's also etched in Latin on his crypt. Clearly not a coincidence. In another vision, Goody warns her that Crackstone is coming and then directs Wednesday to the Gates family mansion. The mayor gets hit by a car on his way to tell the sheriff his thoughts on what's going on after also visiting the Gates mansion. Clearly, he was on to something. Wednesday tricks her Scooby-Doo gang of Enid and Tyler into checking out the Gates mansion with her. Now, as a Black person, there is no way in the hell I would have joined Wednesday in her house search. How you feel about that? Like, you not, and if I drove too, I'm going to see y'all later. You have fun.
I would not be volunteering as tribute for that. No, thank you.
No. And split up. And you want me to go to the other side of the house. Oh, you got me all the way fucked up. There's no way.
And we live in a world where people are trying to revive the dead. No thanks.
Girl. Because what all did they find in that house, right? They found the car that was used to hit the mayor. They found an altar to Joseph Crackstone with fresh candles.
Yes.
They found Laurel Gates' room, Garrett's sister, cobwebs cleared, bed made, even though she allegedly died 25 years ago. And they find all the missing body parts from the monster's victims in the basement. House of Horrors.
Absolutely.
The house is cleared out when Wednesday makes it back with the sheriff, and he's pissed because Tyler was attacked by the monster, apparently. Forbids her from seeing him and pursuing the case. Enid's pissed too, and she moves out for a little bit. Was Wednesday being reckless and putting people's lives in danger in this episode?
Yes. It's like, we're still talking about teenagers. I know you're extraordinary, Wednesday, but not everybody, the game ain't for everybody.
And you also can't protect everybody. Even if you're confident in your own abilities to protect yourself, you could have really gotten them killed.
Absolutely.
Let's wrap the series, Delora. We are to episode 7 and 8. More dead bodies to add to the count as we approach the end of the season, including Mayor Walker, who was murdered in his hospital bed. Uncle Fester comes for a visit, wanted for armed robbery because it couldn't be without incident. And he identifies the monster as a Hyde, as in Jekyll and Hyde. Sends Wednesday to the diaries of the Nevermore founder and the Nightshade Library for more information. Hydes are unlocked through trauma, hypnosis or chemical inducement and controlled. So very Frankenstein-esque, right? That there's a monster, but there's also a master that is pulling its strings.
Great. But, you know, when you live in a world of supernatural, I guess everything's on the table, because a hide was not something I would have come up with at all.
No.
And then even just the way they created this lore, right? Having someone control it versus the, you know, classic story of Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, I guess the Jekyll and Hyde portion is just supposed to be the fact that you're going from human, to monster. Yeah. But for sure, that's why it's me, Mary Shelley, Frankenstein. Yeah. You got to add that level in there as well. Tyler finally got Wednesday on a date because for some reason he still wanted to, even after the alleged attack, and took her to Crackstone's crypt and decked it out for a picnic and a movie. This was a funny scene because he said it was a scary movie and it was Legally Blonde. But the look on Wednesday's face was horror.
Yeah. It's like, read the room.
I loved it. I thought it was very, again, talk about do they know Wednesday? He knew that was going to be something that was going to rub her the wrong way. So for her, it was a scary movie.
Yeah, it was. But I'm still surprised he showed it to her, though. But that was cute.
Thing is stabbed and almost killed while guarding that damn diary. I have never been so emotionally attached to a hand before. And we even finally see some emotion and actual tears from Wednesday.
So I am just completely talking about some behind the scenes type of stuff in awe that the hand was actually a man's hand that whole entire time. Mm-hmm. Like, what type of hand exercises does he do on a regular basis to not like cramp up? Like, his hands are so expressive.
They searched for him too. I mean, he's a pro, so he did a phenomenal job. Because again, I was very emotionally attached to Thing. I was like, y'all cannot, how y'all gonna kill Thing
right
in this series? Wouldn't be right. Wednesday suspects Dr. Kimbot, her therapist, as the master and Xavier as the monster. But when Dr. Kimbot is killed as well, Wednesday frames Xavier and gets him arrested. But Kay, surprise, surprise, Wednesday was wrong, guys. By kissing Tyler, she has a vision and sees him kill Dr. Kimbot and transform. She kidnaps him with the help of the Nightshades and tries to torture him, but is busted by the sheriff after the Nightshades bail and go to Principal Weems. What were your thoughts on the confrontation at the police station between Wednesday and Tyler when he finally reveals the truth?
You can't always fall for that gee golly attitude, right?
I knew it. I was like, I never liked your face, bruh.
It reminded me of that term called masking, right? You know, you were talking about that constant crease. It's like, yeah, he was working overtime. I do love the fact that she was like, of course, my first kiss is with a killer.
With a psychopath. I find those scenes both disturbing and delicious in series and in movies, when the killer or when the real plans and you see that mask fall from the person's face and they evolve into who they really are. And in his case, what struck me the most was him saying that at first he was innocent. He didn't know what was going on, but then he came to enjoy the killings. And I was like, oh, so you're too far gone. There's no saving you.
Yeah.
We didn't know at this point whether the monster, when we met them, was going to be in control. But clearly, Tyler, he's a killer.
But my mind immediately went to Xavier, though, because I'm just like, he really was just invested.
Girl. And you framed him. You framed that boy.
There's no coming back. I'm sure there is a pathway, but it'll be a long one. Long, winding path.
And what bothered me once this grand reveal came out, too, as you think about it, he was so similar to Wednesday. And he was telling her truths about, I had this dream and the claws came out and attacked me, just like how she has visions, and I just happened to be in this place and I always had your back. And it was like, but she never had Xavier's back in the same way. So that got to me too. I was like, imagine if nobody ever believed you about all the crazy stuff that you do and have going on. That was Xavier. He had no one. You left him out in the lurch and framed that man for murder.
But I'm not gonna lie,
because he ain't even got no parents around.
My theory was like, oh, he's out here drawing up his dreams, and his dreams are coming to life, right? Like that was my understanding, and like whether it was intentional or not, I thought we were going down that path. But yep,
innocent as can be.
It was Tyler all along.
Yes. Shout out to WandaVision. Exceptional.
Out.
Check out that recap. Weems expels Wednesday. She said it's enough. No more bargaining, no more talking. Get out of the school. But Eugene wakes up from his coma before she goes and gives her the clue she needed to realize that Mrs. Thornhill is actually Laurel Gates. When she confronts her with Weems pretending to be Tyler, Miss Thornhill kills Weems with nightshade poison and knocks Wednesday out. Had you figured it out already at this point that it was, in fact, Miss Thornhill? Was there any clue before she discovered it that made you say, mm-hmm?
So at this point, it was the process of elimination, especially with this missing family member who is quote unquote presumed dead, right? And I was like, you do not bring Christina Ricci into this series to do nothing.
Yeah, and her not play a pivotal role, as we said. But you know, the moment I realized it was Miss Thornhill was when she was confronting Dr. Kimbot and she talked about flowers. And I was like, oh, no, you got that wrong, sis. It's the teacher who deals with plants. That has to be the connection. It's not just your therapist. It's the person who deals in plants. That was the thing. I was like, oh, it's Miss Thornhill, bruh. It has to be Miss Thornhill. So that was only like a little bit ahead of the grand reveal, but it was still really satisfying when they had that altercation in her conservatory or whatever you call it.
But I didn't want Principal Weems to go.
No, of course not.
Can she come back? Like, this is bogus. I don't want this.
And especially in this way, because Principal Weems had finally gotten on the same page as Wednesday and was finally gonna realize the truth and all of that. And I was wondering too, because I was like, Tyler isn't this docile. What's going on with Tyler here in the background? So when that was revealed, it was like, we got her. Damn it. The grand plans Laurel had were to resurrect her ancestor, Joseph Crackstone, to rid the world of outcasts. Needed Wednesday as the direct blood descendant of Goody Adams, because when Goody killed Crackstone, she cursed his soul with a bloodlock. The resurrection worked, and Wednesday is nearly killed, but thanks to some foresight from Morticia with that necklace, help from Goody, she lives. With assists as we round out this episode from Enid, who finally wolfs out, Bianca, and Eugene, she's able to kill Crackstone for good, capture Tyler, and to be determined on what she actually did with Laurel, aka Miss Thornhill. We see her kick her in the face, but where is she?
Yeah, we didn't get that closure.
No.
That's for sure.
That's lingering. Wednesday hugging Enid at the end of the series definitely showed a lot of growth over the course of the season.
It's one of my favorite parts. I definitely got emotional.
I did too. Yeah. Especially because the way that Jenna Ortega hugged her was so special. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna wrap my arms around you. It was like, I put my face into your shoulder. Like, it was a I need you hug.
Yeah, it was so beautiful, especially because you get that initial reaction, that expected Wednesday reaction, like, why are you touching me?
Yes.
And then you realize you see that relief on her face. It was so beautiful and touching.
It was. We do have cliffhangers in the series, not just the Laurel, what happened to Laurel, but also Wednesday received some stalkerish texts on a new phone that Xavier gave her. And Tyler,
like she just got the phone.
She just got the phone.
It wasn't even a cool 5 minutes.
And Tyler seemingly monsters out and possibly escapes police custody. So, Delora, final thoughts for season 1, and then give me any predictions for season 2.
Season 1 was so good.
Yeah.
So good. Like, we talked about our love for the Addams family, especially from the 90s, but I'm such a huge fan of Tim Burton's, right? Like,
same favorite director.
Edward Scissorhands. I mean, even freaking Sweeney Todd, anything with him and Johnny Depp, really.
The only miss they've ever had for me was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I hated it.
Oh,
but I
that Michael
loved
Jackson face.
It was so disturbing. And Gene Wilder, I guess he was so whimsical in his performance originally that I just no
perfection. Yeah, for sure.
Johnny Depp was a creep.
You think Timothée is up for it?
We'll see.
So I just love how he's able to produce and make these like movies and TV shows, and there's such a fun gothic ride in terms of predictions. Okay, so we got a chance to explore this love triangle in season 1, and when both guys ultimately ended up hurt before like all the big reveals, I'm like, what do you expect from a girl who gives you nothing? Wednesday has given them nothing besides them thinking she's cute and interesting and fascinating, but she never told them, you know what I mean? Like,
she even told Tyler, you're making a mistake. Liking me, you're making a mistake. What are you doing? So, like, I'm not a good friend, let alone girlfriend.
When they became wounded puppies, I'm like, this is self-inflicted at this point, right?
Basically.
But I want to see Wednesday develop some type of relationship with someone. I would love to see that.
It may be too soon for me. Maybe a little too soon.
You think so? She's 16.
I think it's not her age. I think I need to see her develop relationships as a whole before we dive into love.
Like friendships.
Yeah, let's start slow.
Interested to see the Bianca side of things because, you know, that storyline is still wide open.
Yeah.
Love to see Enid in her new life as a full werewolf. Really random, but, you know, the internet is a fascinating place. And in, you know, some of the Wednesday research and things like that, there's a whole tribe of people who are obsessed with Yoko's character. She was the vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Chic. Okay.
Very.
Every, like, they were like, I need more of her. I'm like, she was like peak it girl for sure in terms of like her look, her attitude. So I'm like, I see you, internet. Overall, it was a fun ride. Some of the things that I also thought was really fun in like some of the behind the scenes situation was how Tim Burton is very particular. And Jenny Ortega was talking about how he literally cut her bangs and sprayed it the way he wanted it because they kept going back and forth, you know, hair and makeup, trying to get the director's approval. Like he was that hands-on on Wednesday's bangs. And I thought that was hilarious. And the fact that she doesn't blink. Like if you ever watch the series again, she does not blink, and that's intentional.
Mm-hmm. She's a star, baby.
What about you, Ashley?
I'm obsessed with this series, man. I just don't know any other way to say it. I loved it so much. I'm so glad we got to go into Wednesday's story. My predictions for season 2, though, I think that Pugsley's going to come to the school. Now that she's been there for a little bit, I think Pugsley's going to eventually come. And I think now that the principal position is open, I wonder if they're going to incorporate some other Addams family member into the dynamic with the faculty, like whether somebody comes on board as a teacher, as the new principal, somebody in the Addams family arsenal. I'm just curious about, just so that we can keep up with keeping them center focused in the series as a whole. But I also think there will be more delving into some some of our side characters and folklore, because we didn't get to see a lot of the powers and significance of a lot of those supernatural abilities that they all possess.
Yes,
so I think there's a lot more to unlock with that. We didn't see a single vampire attack. We saw one werewolf attack. We saw barely a little bit of the Cyrus doing their thing. Ajax stoned himself.
So, and I didn't see how he got out of that. I want to know how that.
We got to. I
thought it was over for him.
We got to see these kids unleash this magic. So,
but I have to say, I loved Uncle Fester. I thought that was just pitch perfect when he showed up.
Fred Armisen played the role to perfection.
Yes,
for sure. So. That's it. That's all. I think whatever they do with season 2 is going to be exciting. I'm on the edge of my seat waiting for it. So hopefully they don't take too long. Let's get this season 2 produced and let's get it out.
So here's the deal. Don't take too long, but do it right. Right?
Yeah, they're going to do it right. Tim Burton is not going to let them do it wrong, but just don't make me wait. Like one of my hidden gems, I'm going to talk about Ginny in Georgia. That feels like I waited 11 years to get a season 2. Okay. Speaking of hidden gems, Laura, what you got for this weekend for the good people?
Yes, Ashley, I have 2 this week. Since we are talking about teenagers and high school and cliques, this movie available on Hulu, Darby and the Dead, rated PG-13. It's an hour and 40 minutes long. It follows a young girl after suffering a near-death experience. As a young girl, Darby Harper gains the ability to see dead people. She becomes introverted and recluse from her peers. But all that changes when Capri's unexpectedly dies in a freak accident. This movie came out December 2nd. It stars a beautiful Black girl named, I believe her name is Rael Downs. It has the young lady from Moana and Chosen Jacobs, who is in our Sneakerella recap. So check that out. I love this movie so much because it's everything that I love. It's like that transformational moment. It's centering a Black girl who goes to a school called the Frederick Douglass High School, but we're also in that sunny California, rich kid school, like a la Kissing Booth, how like, oh my goodness, we're in high school, but we live in beachside houses. It was giving all of those vibes, and it was so cute. It was so cute. I literally cackled. And then, of course, we have the supernatural element, which I thought was worth bringing up since we just recapped Wednesday. All right. My second hidden gem is not quite hidden because this is award season bait. It is called The Menu. Came out again, 2022, rated R. It is considered a horror/thriller. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Fiennes, or what people like to call Voldemort. It's a star-studded cast, and it's very pretentious. It's interesting because they talk about it's a conversation on the culinary arts and how far people are willing to go to be the best. I do not love this movie the way I love Darby and the Dead, but it was a fascinating watch. It was well acted. It was beautifully shot, beautiful location, and the story itself was very stressful. So
once I saw it looked like a dinner party gone wrong, I was like, yeah, this probably ain't gonna be the one for me, but
yeah, it's intense. It's available on HBOMax. And like I said, it's definitely Oscar bait. So check it out. Ashley, what's your hidden gems?
All right, I have 3. I already mentioned my first one, which not hidden because it's number 1 on Netflix right now. And that's Ginny in Georgia season 2. My God, you guys understand how long it feels like I waited for a season 2. We recapped season 1, and it is one of our most popular recaps. Sleeper hit, really, because we had no idea.
Because that show was all over the place.
But when I tell y'all that season 2 made me cry, I cried.
Good. I haven't watched it yet,
guys. And I was wrong in my guess on the finale. So it kept me hooked throughout all of the episodes this time.
Ooh.
Still a lot going on. Still a lot going on in the dynamic with Ginny and Georgia, as well as all the shenanigans that Georgia has found herself in over the years. But you definitely dig a little bit deeper into the relationships and into the traumas and into all of that. So highly recommend checking out season 2 of Ginny and Georgia. We'll probably end up putting that on the recap list as well. Second Hidden Gem, Blood and Water, season 3. This was one I think I've talked about before, but man, season 2 lost me a little bit. Like I stopped being excited. Season 3 renewed my interest. Oh,
did it?
Season 3 has redeemed this show for me. When I tell y'all, it has gotten really real on the drama. Ooh. And I am hooked again.
Okay.
It did work my nerves, though. Work my nerves so bad I had to take a couple breaks.
Oh,
but it was so good. So definitely stick with it. If you stopped at season 2 like I did a little bit, finish it out and get on to season 3 because it's worthwhile. That's on Netflix as well. My final one, the Lord talked about it a little bit in our Headlines and Hot Topics episode last week, but man, The Best Man Final Chapters from Paramount Plus. I had forgotten to put this on my list last week because me and my family watched this. Shout out to my uncle as the real MVP on the assist. Watched this over the holidays and we binged it in one afternoon. Even amongst the family, we debated about things within the series. The only drawback I have with it was the pacing. I feel like there were some issues that were brushed over. Others lingered a little bit too long. But overall, getting back into the world of these characters and these stories that we've gotten to see over the 2 films was really enjoyable. Love this cast, obviously. And I'm actually hoping that this isn't the final chapter because I feel like there's a third act that the fans
people live their lives.
I feel like there's a third act that we could pull out. I really do. So if only just me, if only just for me. So I'll leave it there. That's on our recap list as well, guys. So we'll be getting probably into that one too. But that's it for this week. Thank you so much for sticking with us on this recap of Wednesday. It's been so enjoyable. We hope you guys love the series as much as we did. And
yes,
we'll be back as usual with all the tea out here in these pop culture streets. In the meantime, live your best lives, guys, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.